Hi everyone, I'm Ray from the Friday Institute. This is the second video covering E-rate data for November 2020. Wanted to go into a little bit more details. In the first video, we showed this dashboard, which is contracted and utilization. So contracted bandwidth and utilization on the backbone. And this data comes from our state backbone provider of NCREN, which is MCNC. And what I wanted to go into a little bit more was the actual data from the FCC, or technically from USAC, the Universal Services Administrative Corporation, which everyone uses to apply for E-rate, and show how we've been working on visualizing some of that data too. One of the challenges with that data is that it's very hard to derive programmatically the speeds of the circuits. So we get good data on things like the service providers and the dollar amounts, but the actual speed of the circuit is not so easy to ascertain by programmatically going through the database. And that is one of the challenges with what Connected Nation is doing with their E-rate dashboard and their 1 megabit per student push. It's not readily apparent by looking at many school districts' filings exactly what their speeds are as seen at the district level. So it's something to consider as we're putting a little bit of reality into the data to keep that in mind. So real quick, here is the dashboard for this is all of the data from since E-rate modernization, which happened in the 2015 E-rate year for the state of North Carolina. So we've downloaded every public school's information for all those years, and you can see that the total contract value was $662 million through those years, with 453 out of 484 million committed, so requested versus committed. So how much the school district asked for and how much they received. Very high hit ratio there, which I think is indicative of us doing a good job of training the school districts on how to properly apply for E-rate and helping them use the program to the most potential. Then we have the dispersed amount, which is the actual money that has flown from the FCC to the state, to the tune of $368 million since 2015. And keeping in mind the 2020 year is not really reflected in here. The E-rate cycle is about a 1.5-year process where people apply for E-rate and receive it. We could do a whole another video on E-rate, so I'm going to have to assume you at least know that the school districts have a federal program that they can apply for funding, and then they are reimbursed once the services are received. Let's go just to a 1 year though, and explore the data for just 2019, which was the most recent year where pretty much everything is closed out for that year. We had $95 million in total cost and $73 million requested and $69 million committed. Now, so far we've received $58 million, so we have a little bit more available. It's good to have a little bit of headroom there so that you're not leaving money on the table, but that's a good ratio for a year that's happened in the past. Now, what we can also do is explore individual districts and individual services. I think it makes sense to go look at some of these other pages when you're doing that. So we're going to continue on to just the historic view. This is the multi-year view of pre-discount, which is the total cost, requested, which is how much the school district asked for, committed, which is how much the FCC said they would pay, versus dispersed, which is how much they actually paid out, versus rejected, which is when the FCC, technically the USAC, said that no, we're not going to pay for that, and then pending, which is applications that are open still. So the only year that should have pending is the current year 2020, which has about 13 million still to be resolved by USAC. Now, it is interesting to see a significant trend down in total cost, and things to remember is in 2015 with E-rate modernization, voice services were completely eliminated. They were phased out over I think 5 years, but the biggest hit to that was in the third year, and that phase out happened from the most wealthy to the least wealthy school districts. So around 2017, we had a huge drop in E-rate due to voice no longer being in there. But what's cool is we can take voice off of there and see, there's actually a little bit of a tick up there. So why were 2015 and 2016 so big then? Well, that is because those were the first years of the Category 2, the Wi-Fi expansion program, which was the first time that the state also paid for Wi-Fi inside the building connections, which are called internal connections. And so in 2015, the state undertook a project to get a few, I would say a dozen or so vendors on contract, and they bought in bulk, using the buying power of the entire state. And school districts that used those contracts would be reimbursed for whatever E-rate didn't pay. So if E-rate was going to pay 80% of the bill, then the state would pay the additional 20%, up to a predetermined limit, which was $150 per student over the 5-year period. So, in round numbers, the school district paid $0 for a reasonable amount of networking equipment to be placed inside the school buildings. For outside of the school building, which is called Category 1, that's 100% paid for between E-rate and the state. Using the E-rate competitive bidding rules, there's no per student limit as long as you have a cost-effective solution that was competitively bid. So inside the school building, they try to keep things, and by they I mean the FCC, try to keep things under control. Right now it's for the next 5-year period, it's $167 per student, and for the previous 5-year window, it was $150 per student per 5-year period. So with this graph, we can get a nice view, and I would say that we're seeing kind of around 90 million a year. So 92 million was in 2020, and I would expect a similar range this year. So while the cost of some technologies go up over time, Wi-Fi and networking technology actually has kind of been going down. It gets faster and costs a little bit less every year. Labor is what goes up, and so that price will be the big thing that gets inflated. I know in terms of internet connectivity, we're seeing in our previous video we showed the phenomenal growth in demand which we're keeping up to, but here we're keeping costs contained. We didn't really talk about costs in the first video, but I would say if you overlay this cost curve with the absolute increase in bandwidth that we're consuming across the state, this is fairly impressive. I think we've done an excellent job maintaining great connectivity at a reasonable price. The next chart here is the committed and dispersed ratios, and I think we'll pull up a year that's been, let's do 2018, which is completed. So what we're looking at here is the committed funding as a percentage of what they requested, and the dark blue means that they were given everything they asked for, probably, which is great. And the good news is we didn't have any school districts ask for money and get denied completely outright here with the dark brown colors. The dispersed as a percentage of committed is, so hey, I can we can go over here. Here's Nash County, just randomly. Here are this is 2018 again. Here are the different vendors and the services which they were provided E-rate funding for, and you can see there's quite a few. The one at the bottom, $1.591 million to Immix Group. That would be for a significant amount of Wi-Fi equipment in the district that year, and then the $4.8 million from Conterra would be their WAN. So that's the connection between all of the schools to a central point in the school district, $4.18 million. And if we come down to Nash County down here, we can see that they've also been dispersed 100%. So that's great. They're, filing all their paperwork and everything's working great. And all the dollars that they asked for and were entitled to, they have received. So, and as you can see, most of the state is in that boat. This would be, something we would want to question what happened here, that only 6% were dispersed. It's possible they got funding for a project and then later found out they couldn't do it for whatever reason. And so they're showing up with a large amount of money that has technically not been claimed. Well, you have to actually do the project to get the funding. So the most likely reason that something like that happened is they had a change. They could have been impacted by weather or who knows what, and weren't able to complete the project in time. So that's an interesting way to look at the data. And then the other thing we can do is we can just do category 2 contracts that are on the DPI contract. So category 2 requests that are on the state's contract. And this is a nice filter. And as I was saying before, if you use the state contracts, then you get 100% of everything paid for up to the per student limit. And so we'll go to 2015 because that was the first year of that program. And it will be, 2015 was heavily geared towards the lower wealth districts. And we knew that they were in the most need, so there was a priority placed in the first year on the districts that were the highest E-rate level, which is 85% for internal connection. So these school districts were all probably 80 and 85% discounted from E-rate. And the commitment rate is, great here. So 100% commitment is good. That would mean that our contracts were well perceived by the auditors at the USAC, and the prices must have been good. No one was denied for not having a good price. And it's interesting to go around here and explore the list of companies that are going to be showing up for category 2 in this chart will be pretty short. Now we're still displaying all of the other things. So for example, here you can see Verizon Wireless for voice services is not on the DPI contract, but the visualization is based on the DPI contract. We can also look at a view with a filter on LEA and service provider. So let's go to I don't want to pick on anyone. Let's just use the first one, A3, which was a provider of a lot of Wi-Fi gear in the last 5-year cycle. They have here are across all the years, all of the school districts in which they provided services. And you can go out there and see Swain County, A3 had $126,000, so they bought a whole bunch of access points at some point. So that's interesting. We should technically turn on just the DPI category 2 filter to really see, because technically it would be possible for A3 to have provided a service to a district that wasn't on the DPI contract, and then that would not be paid for with the state funds. That would be their own issue to figure out how to pay for that. So I don't think that happened, but technically it would be possible. So this is kind of great. I happen to know that Immix was the biggest provider, and that makes sense probably because they are Cisco, they provided a lot of Cisco gear, which is, the big network provider. So here are all the counties districts that received services from MX Group, and you can go down and see each one. And then we have a historic view over the years. So on this chart, you would pick a school district and then see, historically how much they requested, were committed, and dispersed. So by year and by vendor and by service type. And this is really kind of a cool way to see all the data. Clearly, the gorilla in the room is the internal connections. Usually what happens is, and Alamance is a fairly good sized school district. They don't buy Wi-Fi access points every year. Most school districts, maybe 2 out of the 5 years, will have participated in the internal connections piece. So that's the predominant piece. So if we want to, what we can do is we can just say, let's just look at the internet connections. So that would be take voice off. Okay, so these are the numbers for the internet connections, and you can see their price went down from $340,000 in 2015 to, here's 2020, $206,000. So despite probably a massive increase in the amount of capacity that they're buying for their WAN, they've had the price go down quite a bit. So that's interesting to see. Also, I guess there was some reason they had switched between Bell South and Charter. Alamance County has, Burlington is a fairly populous suburban area with good competition. So that's indicative of a good competition. If we go to, I don't know, what's a county with maybe not so much competition, let's say Halifax, we can see that they have apparently only one provider that's ever been awarded since 2015, and they still have seen a significant reduction in price. So that's nice. The problem, I would say, with Halifax County would be that while the schools have great connectivity, most of the kids out in the country don't have any access. So something to consider there. And then this is looking at the same data with on a percentage basis and across multiple districts, and instead of by vendor, it's just by service type. So we can just go down here and let's just do only internet access. Okay, and then let's take 2020 off because let's do 2019 because that year's been completed, and you can see almost everyone has had a commitment of 100%. So there's a few schools that tried something, and my guess is what happened here is they tried one way and it didn't fly, and they just reapplied, slightly changed, and with a slightly lower amount, and it was approved by the USAC. So that's just another stranger way to probably, the individual districts don't care about this data so much as at the state level we care to know that the E-rate program is running along strong and that the schools are taking advantage of it and they're successful in filling out their paperwork. The E-rate process is not easy to apply for. It's a federal program with a lot of rules, and you can get caught up quickly in it. And so having a team at DPI that actually can help the school districts and knows the districts is probably one of the reasons that we see such high commitment ratios in North Carolina. So that is the full dashboard over time of all the funding for E-rate. And I'm going to do one more video that is a point in time about the actual equipment that was purchased and some metrics we did. So stay tuned for the next video in the series, which is just on Wi-Fi. Thanks.